This is Between the Brackets, a MediaWiki podcast, episode 19, October 16th, 2018. Welcome to Between the Brackets. I'm Yaron Koren. My guest for this episode is Pau Giner, who is a user experience designer who works for the Wikimedia Foundation in the Audiences Design Group. He has been working for the WMF since 2012. Pau, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Yaron.
Where do you live?
I'm based in Valencia, which is at the east coast of Spain.
Yeah. And that is not in Catalonia, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's not in the Catalonian area, but it's definitely under the Catalan culture influence. So we speak the same language, similar to other regions around.
Yeah, okay. And your name is Catalan. The Spanish equivalent would be Pablo, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
Are you Catalan?
Well, I'm from Valencia, and but as I've said, yeah, we have this cultural influence. So I've been speaking the local version of the Catalan language with my parents since I was born.
Yeah, okay. This is something I've been wondering about for a while. Obviously, when you mention Catalonia these days, people think of a lot of incendiary stuff, political stuff. But I want to ask about something more basic, which is there seems to be very heavy interest in Wikipedia and related projects from Catalans, definitely more than from other Spanish people, even though Catalans are only maybe 15% of the population of Spain. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think that there are many people in Catalonia, but also in other areas that speak Catalan that see Wikipedia as a project where they can keep their culture and see that represented. Historically, there have been times where it has not been easy to access and spread the Catalan culture and use the language. So I guess that they see it as a really relevant project to participate in for that purpose.
Yeah. Is that how you got into Wikipedia?
Not exactly that. I have been interested on knowledge and using Wikipedia to learn since there was access to internet and I discovered the project. I was not very actively editing and mainly correcting a few small things because I was aware that it was possible to edit the encyclopedia, but I was not very involved with the community before I joined the foundation.
Yeah, so how did you end up joining the Wikimedia Foundation?
Yeah, so at that time I was at the company after I completed my PhD, and I was wondering in which project I would like to move next, and having an interest for education, knowledge, and being a heavy user of Wikipedia, and definitely loving the mission and seeing it as a kind of public space with a great mission, I decided to try and see if I could fit there. And I was happy to see that they were looking for designers at that time, in particular to work on language projects. So it was a good fit.
Yeah. What were you doing at the previous company? Was it UX stuff or graphic design?
Yeah, it was more UX related work. It was there was also not a specific UX department, but I was taking that part of the job in the teams I was participating. It was related to e-government stuff, so it was important to make all the processes easy to navigate, because they were also targeted to people that not always were tech savvy. So yeah, it was an interesting area to to work on from the interaction perspective more than visual design.
Yeah. And in school, did you study UX also?
Well, in Spain, there is a kind of a broad area of informatics where you get from technical aspects to more user interface design. It was more during my PhD that I specialized on modeling user behavior and more specific UX practices. Yeah.
Yeah. So now at the Wikimedia Foundation, you're one of 11 people on the team known as Audiences Design. It's kind of an odd name. From context, it sounds like it's basically the UX or user experience group at the Wikimedia Foundation. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, that's totally right. I guess that the complexity of the name comes from the organization structure, where you have some teams that are focused on specific products or product areas, for example, the language team. And then you have other groups which are more about skills, like the designers. So basically one designer can be working to one or two teams directly. As it has been my case, I've been working very closely with the language team, where people from different skill sets, engineers, product managers, work together towards that product area.
The product area being audiences?
Well, audiences captures all different product areas that we are focusing on, which could include growth, language, mobile, all the different areas where there are teams working to support the needs of one specific audience, being readers or being editors or maybe something else. That's under the general term of audiences.
Yeah, okay. Of those 11 people in your group, how many are working specifically on MediaWiki as opposed to on apps or Wikimedia Commons or something else? Or is it sort of a everyone does a little bit of everything?
Well, it can be dynamic depending on the focus on different teams. And there are definitely two people that one would be focused on Android app and the other on iOS app. But yeah, for the rest, I guess that all other are products based on MediaWiki that in some cases could be supporting Commons, in most of the cases Wikipedia or Wikipedia specific, or Wikipedia mainly, with also benefiting the general MediaWiki ecosystem. Yeah.
I mean, what's something that would only benefit Wikipedia as opposed to being usable across all MediaWiki installations?
Well, for example, if we are collaborating to support better some templates that were created for Wikipedia cases, or even, for example, in the case of content translation, the Wikipedia is the main target, and that's where the project is provided. And technically, it should work also in other wikis, but that would require also this work of adapting specific kinds of content and for example, abuse filters and all other specific things that each project has, and that's why we sometimes do things generally, but try to prioritize one project before expanding to more.
Right. What are some of the specific parts of MediaWiki or extensions, MediaWiki extensions, that you personally have worked on that people might have heard about?
Yeah, I have been working on several projects. As I mentioned, content translation is one that I have been spending much time lately. It's about translating Wikipedia articles. Also,
Right.
the language selector for switching for switching languages and selecting languages in different contexts, including the new version of the interlanguage links, which are intended to be more compact and respond to your previous choices, so that you don't have to search for your language again and again. Some improvements in filters for recent changes, where we were integrating machine learning and reorganizing the UI to make it possible to have more filters while still being easy to find and apply and combine. And yeah, also some long time back projects like MediaViewer, I also participated there.
Yeah. And there was a special watch list also, I guess, had more or less the same change in look and feel as special recent changes.
Yes, that's right. Those are pages that were sharing kind of a common UI, although they had some customizations. And yeah, the project was about improving the filtering system, and that applied to both in that case.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. If anybody's wondering about that, you can just go to Wikipedia, go to recent changes or special watch list if you're logged in. If you haven't seen it, it just came out. It seems, I think, I just in the last month or two, maybe the new look of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Your group is also involved with maintaining the MediaWiki style guide, and more generally with coming up with a consistent look and feel for MediaWiki, which includes colors, fonts, icons, that sort of thing. How involved were you personally in that?
Yeah, that has been a project that has been evolving in multiple iterations, and yeah, I guess that the whole team have been participating. We are supporting a really huge ecosystem, so it's also not easy to just come and provide a finalized set of rules for everyone to apply. We definitely want to involve the community, and we have been trying to do it on iterations. We got together. We try to use also the time where we are in the same place for some event, being it Wikimania, being it a hackathon, or when we meet once a year in San Francisco, and use some time to coordinate, share our experiences and that we had based on the projects that we have been working directly, and try to find consistent ways and common places to establish this general direction. The end goal finally is that anyone that is creating a MediaWiki extension has to do less decisions about the things that are not specific to their goals. So someone that is trying to create a new extension can just have a default set of colors that have been tested for accessibility reasons, and you can just rely on those. And we are trying to expand the style guide to cover not only the basics but also components, so that at some point it would be much easier to make decisions on the UI just by picking from these examples and reusable blocks.
Yeah. That's come up for me as an issue actually just pretty recently. I have an extension called Approved Revs where we decided to highlight one of the revisions in the history page. I'm getting somewhere fast. Don't worry. Yeah. Anyway, we had to decide on a highlight color for it, so we consulted the MediaWiki style guide. I'm still not sure. It was me and another guy were talking about it. I'm still not sure we made the right decision. We went with green, with light green for the row highlighting. But anyway, it was good that at least there was a pretty small finite set of colors to choose from, and some kind of documentation on that. Although more would be good, but obviously that's that's an evolving thing. Not more colors, more rules. There's a perception which I think is outdated, but it still exists, that Wikipedia and MediaWiki are very under-designed. Definitely there was a period of time, maybe 5 years ago or more, when it felt like every month some graphic designer came out with a big proposal for a new improved look for Wikipedia. That seems to have died down for whatever reason, but there's still the perception that the MediaWiki interface is very simple or even simplistic. I heard somebody recently describe MediaWiki as the Emacs of CMSs, if you know about Emacs. I don't think that's totally fair, but that is the view some people have. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that probably one of the reasons why people or more general audience may have that impression is that in the past we have been focusing on projects that are not that visible to the general audience. For example, I guess that most people think of their experience on the desktop Wikipedia, and that has not been the target for improvements on readers. The improvements on readers were mainly focused on the mobile experience, because there was no mobile app or mobile version of the web that long ago, and that was what was the main focus of development and design from the reader perspective. And there were still many people thinking on how it was looking on the desktop. Also, another
Right.
reason is that with such a wide ecosystem and having people also being used to seeing specific patterns, most of the time we have been focusing on iterations and gradual changes. So,
Yeah.
for example, as you mentioned, with the filters, we were very, very focused on changing only the filter mechanism, and leaving other parts like the way changes are listed for the future. And it's just a reflection of the complexity. If you try to modify too many things at the same time, you're going to find lots of use cases and lots of uses that you have not anticipating. So I guess it's part of this combination. Our focus have been on mobile and also on contributing tools, not much on the reading experience on desktop, which is what people have in mind, and also the need to iterate on projects that have been used, that people are passionate about for a long while, and we need to be careful on the different use cases of a product that can get extended and used in many different ways.
Yeah, you mean careful as in not to make changes too quickly?
Yeah, and also being mindful that people use this to do work that it's important for them. So on the one hand, we definitely want to experiment and try new things, but on the other hand, we need to be careful not to break their workflows or cause them to do wasted efforts. And part of the solutions to find the right balance are things like the beta features infrastructure that was proposed by the design team a long time ago and was finally supported. And for example, that allows us to propose changes that people can try, and if that change is blocking your work, you can disable the beta feature, go the old way, complete the work, and report what's going wrong. So that allows us to move faster while not breaking the work that people are doing.
Yeah. Well, what beta features specifically are you talking about, or just a bunch of them?
I was talking about the concept of beta feature, the infrastructure.
Oh, just the concept of beta features. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something that was not existing long time ago, and at that point you need to decide if you're making a change. You could decide which wikis to apply it, but it was going to affect everyone unless you do very specific things that require a specific effort. And however, with the beta feature infrastructure, you can just create a feature that affects the users that are willing to try it.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about MediaWiki skins, but actually I'm not sure if you have any involvement in that. Are you involved in skins at all?
No, I have not been involved. I've seen that there has been some efforts to simplify the list of skins. There have been also some efforts of trying to make some skins responsive, but I think that it has been mostly community-driven efforts. And that's just another example where by using the style guide and also finding communication channels, we try to keep all these efforts, although we cannot participate directly, to keep them as aligned as possible.
Yeah. Is skins something that your group would be involved in if you had more time or more bandwidth or whatever, or it's just not part of your mission assignment?
Yeah, I think that it would make sense to, and we are we are definitely interested on finding the channels to provide feedback to any volunteer designer or any team that is trying to use MediaWiki for some purposes and they have design questions. Obviously, we are a small team. We cannot cover all those cases. Although there are specific events where, like hackathons, where we are trying to do so and try to provide help to whoever is working on a MediaWiki project that may need design input.
Yeah. Are you trying to hire more people?
Yeah, we are. I think we have an open position right now, and the team has been growing, and yeah, I think that although Wikimedia projects started very developer focused by volunteer developers, the presence of designers and the understanding of the value the design process brings have been growing over time, and I think that has been reflected on the team growing and being involved in more projects. And there are currently more projects than people we have to participate in them. So I guess that the answer is yes, that we are expected to grow.
Cool. I want to ask about user testing. I think most people have a sense that when Facebook or Google or that kind of site increase the amount of white space padding in some area on the screen by 2 pixels or whatever, there's a lot of user testing that went into that, whether that's sitting down with users as they go through the site or doing A/B testing, that sort of thing, live testing on the site to see if more white space leads to more clicks or that kind of thing. But I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that the Wikimedia Foundation does user testing too, even with the pretty minimal design and UX team you have. What's user testing like at the Wikimedia Foundation?
Okay, I guess that there are different types. I would talk more about user research, which kind of includes different initiatives. There's definitely usability testing that is normally done on products that people can use, but I think that the most valuable is when things are done before these projects are built. That's for example, if we have an idea for one product and we are exploring some design concepts, we normally create interactive prototypes that simulate how those would work. They are
Right.
not actually working. They're not connecting to any database. They are not
Sure.
using real data. They're just pretending to work with some predefined data that we have for a specific scenario, and we contact people and observe how they would work with those prototypes in a particular scenario. You can ask someone to create a translation or look for vandalism in the case of filters, and with that simulation you learn if the general direction and the core interaction concepts are the right ones. I think that's the more important part, because later adjusting the specific icon or adjusting the spacing and all those can be done iteratively. The biggest problems happen when you realize after building a product that the general direction was not the right one. That represents a lot of work and effort that we can afford wasting. So I definitely try to push for testing ideas earlier. And another kind of research is more general research that has been happening to understand the needs of specific segments of our audience. There was one user research initiative that was targeted at new readers, where researchers were going to Mexico, India, and other emerging markets to understand their specific needs. And out of that, they identified that things like supporting offline modes on mobile was very relevant for them. And there has been a more recent research initiative targeted at new editors for medium-sized Wikipedias, where research teams were collaborating with local researchers in South Korea and the Czech Republic to understand which are the barriers for Wikipedias of those size to grow. And that's also very informative to decide which product to build. So basically, in general, I think that we are trying to apply it at these three levels to understand the needs, to verify design directions, and then finally to identify more specific usability issues of those solutions.
Yeah. Do you sometimes see a conflict between trying to make things accessible for new editors and satisfying existing users, power editors, that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. That's we have a really wide and diverse audience, and there's a diversity of needs, and it can be classified in many different types of user, and there are definitely different priorities for each one. But I think that balancing those priorities is part of solving problems in this context.
Yeah. You mentioned the media viewer before. Let me ask about that one, because it might be the most controversial project that's been done by the Wikimedia Foundation. For those who don't know about it, if you go to Wikipedia and click on an image, you'll see a big version of that same image on a black background with some other information about the image at the bottom of the screen. It doesn't sound very controversial, but it led to a whole lot of drama when it was introduced in 2014, especially on the German language Wikipedia, where a majority of the editors voted that they didn't want the media viewer as the default interface for viewing images, but the WMF wouldn't let them remove it. I'm simplifying a bit. What's your take on the whole thing?
Yeah, that's a good example of what you were saying. Basically the media viewer it's available right now by default, and I guess that people are used to seeing it now as part of the default experience. But what we used to have before was that someone that was reading a Wikipedia article and wants to check an image in more detail suddenly goes to a completely different site, which would be Commons or an intermediate page that could lead to Commons, and was heavily focused on providing that metadata and not the viewing experience. And yeah, we wanted to provide a more immersive experience so that people could, reading the Wikipedia articles, could appreciate the high quality images and media that our volunteers contribute. And but yeah, we got feedback that was adding one more step to those that wanted to contribute metadata and information to those images. But interestingly, I think that the biggest controversy was around the attribution, and the problem was that MediaViewer in many cases was not showing the right license information, and obviously volunteers contributing those images put a lot of effort picking the specific license. And it's an interesting case because the underlying issue was that since MediaWiki in the way it's used in Commons was capturing the license information as a set of templates, that was not always easy to process by MediaViewer. I guess that a project such as the one that it's happening now to better structure the information on Commons with structured data would have helped to avoid this issue. Fortunately, once we were providing a more solid way to present the license information and also an option for advanced editors to skip MediaViewer when they were not interested and they wanted to go right into Commons, then we find the right balance. And it's interesting because looking in retrospect, I've heard people saying that was an example of the team doing lots of changes to accommodate the initial criticisms, but it was more a couple of very specific changes that touch some key pain points for advanced editors, really.
Yeah. Are there any parts of the MediaWiki interface or of any MediaWiki extensions that you're particularly happy with how they turned out, whether you were involved with that project or not?
Well, for projects that I have been involved, I'm really, really happy to see the impact of content translation. I think that it has been it has become for many wikis a common contribution tool. There are still aspects to improve, and that's why we are working on the new version of it. But I think that in terms of seeing the impact and also being a case that we have been using to apply the style guide from the design team, I think that it has been really, really great to see the outcome. And it has been also not only adopted by many communities, but integrated in their day-to-day uses, and they have been measuring how they are more productive with the tool, and there have been very very nice stories out of that.
Yeah, cool. I don't know much about that one. I mean, I've heard of it, but I haven't really seen it in use because I'm only ever on the English language stuff. Well, almost always, but basically the idea is you're on some other language of, say, Wikipedia, and you want to create a new article, so you get some machine translated version of the English language one and start and use that as a starting point.
That's the general idea, that you want to create a new article, and if you are a multilingual user, you can take advantage of the efforts that were made by another community, so you can translate. But there are some interesting aspects to this process. For example, by doing this user research, we learned that in many cases users were not interested in translating the whole original article. They were interested in creating an initial version with some key paragraphs, adding the images. And that's the reason why in the UI you go paragraph by paragraph adding them instead of having the whole thing automatically translated, which would be a commitment too big for an editor with that intention. And also we are trying to automate as many steps as possible. There are some small details, but by observing how people were translating before, we noticed that if you have to translate a link to an article, you have to translate the word for the link label, but then figure out which is the equivalent name of the article in the target Wikipedia. And we are automating all that. So even if you, in cases that there is no matching translation available, we are doing this kind of adaptation where the link pointing to cheese, if you translate to Italian, is pointing to formaggio, or whichever is the exact name that they use in that Wikipedia.
Yeah. Is that using Visual Editor?
When we created that, we wanted to test the concept if all those helps for translators were working the way we expected. And we were not using Visual Editor at the time because we also identify that in most of the cases when translators create this first version, they can later use whichever editor they want to iterate on that. So we were using the default browser editing surface. And more recently, we have created a new version of the tool. We are working on a new version of the tool where we have replaced that editing surface with Visual Editor editing surface. And that brings more reliable editing of complex wiki text, and it provides also more freedom for editing. But it's part of this evolution where we are now with version 2 trying to make the tool more solid and more flexible.
Yeah. Well, great. That sounds like a great example of iterative design leading to something really usable. So you co-wrote a book last year called UX Design for Mobile for Pact Publishing. What kinds of things do you talk about in that book?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. That book. Yeah, a friend of mine approached and he was suggesting to create a book and about design. I have been involved in organizing design workshops, so I really like to explain the basics of design and the process of design to other people that are learning, because also that allows you to reflect on the whole process, and
sure.
And I think that's really great. So I had these ideas that I was explaining at the workshop, and I saw this is an opportunity to capture it in a book, and we wanted it to be very, very pragmatic based on the day-to-day decisions of the design process. And I think it should be useful also for people that have no experience with design, that they came from a developing perspective.
Yeah.
Especially to change the way that they see the role of design, and how they see design as the way to put the needs of the user first, and think on how to solve those needs, and seeing technology as the way to make that happen as a second step.
Yeah. So you saw this is something that hasn't been well covered so far. This kind of specific mobile based focus.
Yeah, I guess that there are many books in the UX ecosystem, and what we were trying to provide was something that was very, very practical. We are also providing not only information on the general concepts and how to apply them in practice, but also step-by-step examples of specific tools. So yeah, I guess that we wanted to make it very very pragmatic and very very practical. I think that's what makes the book different from others in the area.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, the book again is called UX Design for Mobile, and I'll have a link to it on the page for this episode on the podcast site. Who are some of your heroes or inspirations as far as design or interface design?
Well, I guess that there are many people I can think of. The classic answers to that question could be Dieter Rams has been mentioned and has been an inspiration also for all kinds of designers. His work at Braun has been also inspiring. Jonathan Ive, which is also another reference in terms of graphic design. Thinking of Michael Bierut is also a star in the area, and classics like Massimo Vignelli. But I think that nowadays, I guess that good work is happening, or good design is recognized more as a team effort. So I guess that now, we hear less about individuals, and we hear more about companies and brands. Like, I don't know, the work that Wolf Hollins is doing on branding is also very good work that it's always great to look at.
Sorry, who was that? What was that last one?
Wolf Hollins. It's a branding agency. You may remember the London Olympics logo, which was one of the slightly controversial branding efforts they have been doing.
I see. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was thinking back to the you can find it a bunch of places on the web, but the side-by-side comparisons of Apple products, I guess mostly from the 90s, to Dieter Rams's products at Braun, it was sort of, each one sort of looks like an homage to what he was doing.
I guess that the 10 Principles of Good Design by Dieter Rams is something that is a reference for all design disciplines, from industrial design, architecture, and definitely interaction and user interface design.
Cool. Great. Well, that's all my questions. Thank you very much, Pau. It was great talking to you.
Thanks for having me here. Really happy to participate. Thanks.
This has been another episode of Between the Brackets. I want to again thank my guest, Pau Giner of the Wikimedia Foundation. Thanks for listening, and see you all next time.